underlies the new generation to research and innovate in technology. The University of Heroes, ITS. ITS is one of the best science and technology universities in Indonesia, which was founded by Dr. Angga in 1957. In every step, ITS focuses in advancing education, research, management, and community service. Incorporated public university, ITS has been able to manage autonomously the policy of academics, organizations, finance, students' affairs, human resources, facilities, operational, and infrastructure.
In the spirit of Indonesian heroes, during the battle in the 10th of November 1945, ITS always makes efforts to be the best in education, research, and community services, especially in the fields of industry and maritime. ITS also actively contributes to the nation development, and in the future, ITS will become an entrepreneurial university with world-class reputation.
ITS has many achievements. Both national and international achievements prove that ITS keeps growing and gives the best contribution to the nation of Indonesia. ITS is a place for new hopes to grow. An ideal environment for the new generation to flourish in 3 strategic locations within the industrial city of Surabaya. As a smart eco-campus, ITS maintains harmony between technological advances and the sustainability of the surrounding ecosystem. ITS has 7 faculties with prospective scientific fields, including scientists, IMSIS, vocation, creatives, more tech, electives, plan. ITS is a space for the new generation who are hungry for knowledge because it provides a wide range of references in both physical and digital form. ITS makes it easier for the new generation to access information by providing flexible classes. ITS keeps moving forward in facing future challenges by providing the best facilities for the new generation's activities. The facilities support both spiritual and physical needs. ITS also provides research facilities in the ITS Science Technopark, including ICT and robotics, automotive, maritime, and and creative industries. Therefore, the excellent generations from ITS will emerge and make history. ITS is a space for the new generation to express themselves. ITS is a place where the new generation learns new things and finds their purpose. ITS has become a place where the new generations that carry the future will be born.
ITS is a campus of science and technology, which focuses on the research and innovation, presenting technology for prosperity.
With a spirit of heroism, ITS brings the future before us. ITS, the University of Heroes.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we start commence the program, and here are the following webinar protocol. For each participant ID, please use your real name following with your origin of institution. All of participants are expected to mute the audio and only unmute the video during the event. We cordially invite you to take your own firm and comfort seat in your own room, and please avoid the backlight. Make sure that you have a good and stable internet connection. If you have an earphone or headset, we recommend you to use it so that your voice can clearly and loudly to be heard. During the Q&A discussion session, all participants, please use the chat box to deliver the questions. Thank you for your cooperation and consideration.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining our event today, Researcher and Research Student Enrichment Program for Arts Engineering Stream. Before we start our agenda today, I would like to re-inform you about the protocol to join this event. First, please make sure that you have adjusted your name using the provided format. And then second, during the event, please turn off your audio and only turn on the audio when the host or the moderator gives you the chance. Third, please turn on your camera. Fourth, please ensure your network has a stable connection. Fifth, please sit comfortably and prevent the backlight effect. I will also read out the important information to all attendants. First, please fill in the attendance form on the provided link shared by our committee in the Zoom chat room. You will only have the link for 15 minutes to fill your attendance. Second, please fill in the feedback form, which will be shared 15 minutes before the session ends, and it will be closed after 1 hour. Third, the attendance and feedbacks are compulsory for these purposes. First, it is mandatory attendance for ITS master and doctoral student new intake. Second, it is for certificate of participation, which is eligible for international participant who have 60% attendance or minimum attending 5 sessions. It is for STEM for it, which is eligible for ITS undergraduate students. Okay, I think we need to start now. Okay, welcome everyone to Research and Research Student Enrichment Program for Hard Engineering Stream. Today, Thursday, 9 September 2021. I am Dewi from ITS Postgraduate Office, and I will be your Master of Ceremony for this session. Please do not forget to fill in your attendance form again, which is shared by our committee through the Zoom chat room. Participant who wish to ask a question during Q&A session, please send your question in the provided link. It will be sent later. And then alternatively, you may raise your hand during Q&A session to ask your question directly. So it is okay if you would like to raise your hand to ask the question directly. Now, before we start the session, allow me to inform you about today's schedule, which is, of course, the opening by the MC, continued by the welcoming speech by management of ITS, which will be represented by the Deputy of Postgraduate Office. The next agenda will be the introduction to the moderator and the speaker. After that, we will get to the main session, which is the lecture session, followed by Q&A, and it will be ended with the conclusion and closing. Now, our next agenda is the welcoming speech. I would like to invite Dr. Ardiono Priyadi, the Deputy of Postgraduate Office, to give the welcoming address. Dr. Ardiono, the time is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Dewi Sartika. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to express my expression to the speaker, Dr. Zaid Omar, from School of Electrical Engineering, University Technology of Malaysia. I would like also to welcome to the postgraduate student of ITS and the international student who coming to this program. Today's session is the workshop of research and research student enrichment program, or we call it R2S EP program with the topic expectation from being a postgraduate student. The program aims to give the student the insight and knowledgeable experience from the speaker. Becoming a postgraduate student needs dedication, commitment, and hard work. It is so very useful when students can hear a direct experience from our speaker. In Era 2 SAP program runs through one whole semester with the variety of topics and speakers. Hopefully, the program can equip students with comprehensive understanding of postgraduate student life, challenges, and how to overcome them. So I hope you will enjoy with our program and successfully for you and everybody for next future. Thank you very much for your coming. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Ardiono, for the welcoming speech. Before moving to the next agenda, please allow me to elaborate about today's lecture. Today's lecture theme is in Hard Engineering Stream of R2 SEP is about expectation from being a postgraduate student, which will be delivered by our honorable speaker, Dr. Zaid Omar from University Technology Malaysia, and Dr. Astria Nur Irfansyah from ITS, who will be our moderator for today's session. Let me introduce you to our moderator first. So our moderator today is Dr. Astria Nur Irfansyah, or I usually call him Dr. Irfan, is the lecturer in Department of Electrical Engineering of ITS. Currently, he is also as the Senior Manager of International Partnership at ITS Global Engagement. And for his educational background, he got his PhD degree at the University of New South Wales, Australia. Well, he has, until now, I think he is the Vice Secretary of IEEE, Industrial Electronic Society Indonesian Chapter. And from 2012 until 2016, he is the lab demonstrator at UNSW Australia. He has a research interest in microelectronics, embedded system, and UAV. Now that you are informed about our moderator, without further ado, let's proceed to the main agenda. So I would like to invite Dr. Irfan as our moderator, and the time is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Dewi Sartika, for the very kind introduction. Is my voice clear yet?
Yes,
okay.
We can hear your voice.
So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, or evening, or morning.
Afternoon.
Maybe afternoon, yeah. Selamat sore, semua. Thank you for attending the first session of R2SEP, or I'm from the international office. We usually say recipe, just like a recipe. So I hope everyone here are all well and healthy. And today, this is the first session of the R2SEP program, and specifically in this room, this is the hard engineering stream. For your information, there are two streams running in parallel right now, and this is the hard engineering stream. And as I can see, most of you are from either electrical engineering, chemical, civil engineering, and the likes. Yeah. So my name is Irfan. I will be serving as your moderator today. So we are pleased to have with us our distinguished speaker, Associate Professor Zaid Omar from University Technology Malaysia. Dr. Zaid Omar will be talking about a very relevant topic for all of the postgrad students here today, and that will be expectations on being a postgraduate student. But before we start, let me briefly read his profile. So Dr. Zaid Omar from University Technology Malaysia. He is a senior lecturer at the School of Electrical Engineering, University Technology Malaysia. He received his PhD in electrical engineering from the Imperial College London, UK. He received his master's degree, MSc, in Data Communications, University of Sheffield, UK, and bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Engineering in Computer from University Technology Malaysia. His research interest is computer vision, medical imaging, machine learning, and image fusion. And I honestly believe maybe many of you today, the new postgrad students, have an overlapping field with Dr. Zaid Omar. So let us all welcome Dr. Zaid Omar. Assalamualaikum, Doctor. You may start your presentation, approximately 50 to 60 minutes, and then we will continue with the Q&A session. So, Dr. Zaid Omar?
Yes.
Okay, right, you can start.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Irfan, for the kind introduction. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon, everyone. How are you all today on this fine day? It's very sunny here in Malaysia. I hope it's the same in Surabaya, Indonesia. ITS is an institution that I hold very close to my heart. I visited the ITS campus way back in 2017, and I fell in love with the place. I was even invited to give a guest lecture at the Department of Informatics at ITS, and since then I've tried to, maintain close relationship with ITS, and alhamdulillah, with this opportunity to share with you some knowledge that I have with regards to journey into the world of research. So that will be my topic of sharing today, inshallah. Yeah. So thank you again to Ibu Dewi, to Dr. Ardiano, and the rest of the wonderful people at ITS for inviting me to give this sharing session. And I will try my best to, share with you whatever information or knowledge I have, and to guide you into the world of postgraduate research, inshallah. Yeah. So you all can see the slides. No problem.
Yes.
Boleh? Boleh ya? Bisa ya? Okay, so let's start. So as kindly introduced by Dr. Irfan Shah, so I am a senior lecturer at the School of Electrical Engineering here, and my research interests, as mentioned, in image processing, computer vision, biomedical, and so on, and my PhD and master's degrees. I would also like to mention that I do have experience supervising postgraduates of my own. I have supervised and successfully graduated a number of postgraduate students, and also the fact that I was also once a postgraduate student. So, I'll try to gather all the experiences, all the do's and don'ts of being a postgraduate student in this talk based on my own experiences of me being a postgraduate student, and also me supervising my own postgraduate students. Any more information that the audience would like to know about me, you are welcome to visit my website as stated there. In it, you can find my biography, my teaching background, research, and also some other activities I'm involved in. For your information, from 2018 to 2020, I took a sabbatical to become a director of student development at the Ministry of Higher Education in Malaysia. So, not just academic, not just lecturer and postgraduate supervision and research and so on. I do have experiences in policymaking, in administration and governance as well, inshallah. So first up, postgraduate research. So what is it actually? For some of you who maybe mostly come from an undergraduate background, maybe you've just finished your undergraduate, and maybe you have just started your first semester in S2 or S3, master's or PhD. How do we differentiate between an undergraduate degree or bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD degree, actually? Well, I like to think of it like this. An undergraduate level, you are basically a practitioner. This means that you are applying basic research skills in an area of interest that may not be so specific, that may be quite broad. And at this level, the focus is more on you gaining broad competencies in a number of subjects. So that is at undergraduate level. When you go up one level and you do S2, master's, you start to demonstrate the capacity to apply more advanced research skills, and you start to incorporate some critical insights into your study. So as compared to a bachelor, a master's level, you start to become a specialist in your particular research area or research subject. And further on, when after your master's and you do your PhD, and even in some cases, you can even go straight from bachelor to PhD with the fast tracks and so on. At PhD level, now is the time for applying specialized research skills, i.e. an expert knowledge of a concept, of a method, so that a PhD student makes a significant and original contribution to knowledge. So at this level, what you have is you identifying a gap in knowledge, and you address that gap in knowledge that makes you become an authority in a research field. So a degree is a practitioner, you're practicing, and you are capable of practicing it, and that's why you have a bachelor's degree. A master's level is that you are specializing in a particular research topic, and a PhD is that you are authoritative in a particular research topic. So between those three, let's talk about PhD, because that's the highest awarded academic degree that you can find in the world. Anywhere from Indonesia to Malaysia to the UK, Australia, Japan, even the Arab countries and so on. Anywhere you go in the world, the highest awarded academic degree that is recognized worldwide is called a PhD, right? So what it is it consists of 3 or even more years of independent work on a research project, and all of that work is sort of encompassed or summarized, encapsulated in something called a thesis or dissertation or a report. And at the end of your 3 years study, you're supposed to defend that thesis, defend that work in something called a viva voce examination. And I said PhD denotes authority and original contribution in a specific field. Now, in the next slide, I would like to share with you a diagram or just an illustration of what PhD and what master's research really is. So imagine, first of all, a circle that contains all of human knowledge. And imagine that, hold on, okay. Oops, sorry. And imagine that, can you see my arrow?
Yes, your arrow.
Yes, yeah, we can see.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. So imagine a circle that contains all of human knowledge in existence. And imagine that each section of the circle represents a different discipline of knowledge. So this is engineering, this is mathematics, this is medicine, this is history, this is languages, law, biology, and so on, different facets. Now, when you finish elementary school or sekolah rendah or primary school, you know a little bit about everything. So this circle here represents all that you know, which is just a little bit, one tiny part of all of human knowledge in existence. You know your ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, and so on. By the time you finish high school, you know a little bit more. So you expand, you learn your calculus, you learn your, photosynthesis and so on. And then what happens after high school is that you go to university. So with a bachelor's degree at university, you start to gain a specialty, but not too narrow, just a broad specialty. So in my case, my degree was in computer engineering. So this is sort of the direction of my specialty in computer engineering. Once I'm finished with my degree, I start to take a master's degree, which specializes my field even further in the sub areas of computer engineering or electrical engineering. So a master's degree, it deepens that specialty. And finally, when you're doing master's research or doing PhD, and you read research papers and you dive very deep into this very specific particular problem, a research problem, reading research papers takes us to the very edge of human knowledge in that very specific field, where all the extent of work, all the extent of knowledge, all the extent of literature or studies that has been done on that particular small, narrow field or narrow topic, that is everything that you know, and that is everything that you are going to be reading and studying. And once you get at this point, at this boundary of human knowledge here, you start to focus. So let's magnify. And what you do here at PhD level is that you push and you push at this boundary for a few years, this very small boundary relative to the whole circle of human knowledge. You push and you push at that boundary for a few years until one day that boundary gives way. It breaks. And that little dent that you've made relative to the whole circle of human knowledge, that is called your PhD, and that is your original contribution to knowledge. Because that dent is something that is not existed before, because nobody has done it before. So however small that dent is, that is yours, because that is your original contribution. So what we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, is that together, research in S2 and S3, what we're doing is that together, little by little, we are expanding the circle of human knowledge. Imagine 100 or 200 or 500 years ago, the amount of knowledge in the world, the total amount of human knowledge in the world is this big. But with research and with postgraduate degrees and so on, it has grown into a big size with the contributions of research and postgraduates and so on, with the original contributions and so on. So imagine how big this circle may be in the future with the help of research and PhD. Yeah. So now let's talk about the philosophy of research. Why is it called a Doctor of Philosophy? I mean, PhD, and people tend to say it's pile higher and deeper or permanent head damage. But why is it normally called a PhD, a Doctor of Philosophy? I know that in some other countries, they call it Doctor of Engineering or DEng, and so on. But the most common term is called a PhD, which refers to the same thing. So why is it called PhD? And the reason we can give is that compared to undergraduate, why is it not called the Bachelor of Philosophy? Why is it called the Bachelor of Engineering or Bachelor of Art, Bachelor of Science, BSc, BEng, BA, and so on, compared to PhD? Why is it not called doctorate? Is not called science or whatever? Is that the difference in structure? So a PhD degree or a research degree does not have really a clear structure, and the passing of a PhD and a postgraduate degree depends solely on the thesis, which should be a product of sound academic research. And if you go to the dictionaries, and if you go to the definition of what research is, and we here as research students, what research is and what we are doing every day is that research is defined as a systematic process of collecting and analyzing information to discover new knowledge, right? And for something to be qualified as a research, for something to be qualified to be called a research, it must have a series of things. So here's the thing: not everything that we do, you want to find out about something, so you study about something, and then you call it research. No, it doesn't work like that. Research has a very specific criteria that will qualify it to become called research. So research is something to be that has to be controlled. So for example, if the study must be set in a way to minimize the effects of other factors. So if you want to study the factors affecting the relationships of variables and so on, so you have to remove all the other factors. You have to make it a controlled experiment. Research has to be rigorous. What that means is that you have to make sure that the procedures are followed rigorously. The procedures are correct. The techniques are correct. The methods are correct. The research has to be systematic, which means that the procedures it has to follow certain logical sequences, certain systematic sequences. A research, it has to be valid and verifiable, which means that whatever results that you produce, it can be compared and it can be tested by people other than you. The research must be empirical, which means that whatever results that you obtain from the research, it has hard evidence that people can measure. So it's not just hearsay and so on. And finally, research has to be critical, which means that it's subject it is subject that it can be, it can be given to others and subjected to critical scrutiny of the methods, of the procedures, of the experiments, and of the results to be employed. So with this in mind, not everything that we do when we are studying about something, I'll give you an example. So if you're studying about, let's say you're studying about the effects of vaccine and so on, and then you just Google one or two websites on the internet, and then you call it research. I've done my research. So it doesn't work that way. So research is a very clear step-by-step, a rigorous, controlled, empirical, and critical process. So if you really want to study about, vaccines or COVID, ivermectin and so on, these are the steps that you have to be undertaken to really say that I've done my research on ivermectin, I've done my research on COVID, I've done my research on vaccines and so on. Otherwise, it's just internet browsing, and that doesn't count. All right. So I'm sure that whatever you are doing in your current postgraduate study, make sure that they have all these elements for it to be qualified as research. So what does the process of research? So I talked about it in the previous slide. So what is the process of the step-by-step of research? Well, I can give you 5 basic steps of what research consists of. So first of all, we examine something. So what does examine? So you dig into the problem and you look at the history, the context, the objects, and the people that are involved. And this, in other words, means that what is the problem that we are trying to solve? If we solve this problem, what will happen? So what? If we solve this problem, who will benefit? What will benefit? How much will they benefit? So what does this problem, this research that we are trying to solve, that we're trying to do, what does it contribute towards? Okay, so the motivation and the rationale of doing this research, that is the first part to get right. The secondly is to understand, which means to go deeper and find patterns and establish open questions to build on. So this might mean research gaps and building your hypothesis from these research gaps. Research gaps means that obviously you are not the first person in the world to work on this particular problem. I'm sure that there are other people before you that have done it in literature and so on. So you need to critically assess what have the other people done that has been lacking. What are their weaknesses? What are their limitations that they have tried to solve the problem, but what are their limitations such that the problem is still not solved? So that is your research gap. That's what you are pinpointing or you're targeting on. So that is for understanding. And thirdly, after you've managed to get your hypothesis, research gap, problem statement, you will start to ideate or you find solutions. So you have lots of ideas, and then you start to create your methodology. You create your scope and your techniques, and so on. So this will be your the main crux or the substantial part of your research endeavor, your research time in postgraduate. And after building your methodology, your techniques or your solution, whatever, and then you start to experiment upon those. So experiment it with data, or you experiment or you do surveys and you try to find results that support your hypothesis. Okay. And finally, you distill everything and you produce it in a very clear writing, in a very clear documentation that you then send for publication. So that is the 5 steps of research that you have to follow. Now, I'll give you an example. So this is one of my research. It's called Machine Learning Techniques for Palm Oil Ripeness Detection. So in Indonesia and in Malaysia, we have a lot of palm oil trees, palm oil plantation, and palm oil, or kelapa sawit, is a very big business in both our countries. it contributes a lot to the nation's economy. So I'm trying to find the 5 steps in palm oil in my palm oil research. So my examination, what is my examination? My examination is that palm oil is a very big business. However, it is susceptible to improper harvesting practices. A lot of the palm oil fruits, they get taken down before they are ripe. So that is a waste. So we are trying to solve that. So we are trying to detect if it is possible to measure the ripeness of the palm oil before it gets taken down. So those trees that are not ripe yet, we can leave them to ripe and we just take down the ones that are ripe. We're using machine learning or artificial intelligence or computer vision techniques to do that. And moving on to the next step is that, of course, I'm not the first one to implement this. I'm not the first one to work on this palm oil research. There are others before me, but however, I have identified that their works are mostly done in an indoor setting. So what it means is that they already harvest or cut the fruit, the palm oil fruit, they take it indoors in a laboratory, and then only then they detect or they measure the ripeness. And I say that's too late because you already cut the fruit. So I want to measure the fruit right at the outside at the plantation during the day and so on. So the problem associated with that is that when it's outdoors, obviously there are sun, there are rain, there are shadows, and so on. So it's a very difficult lighting environment. So there are other problems with that associated. And therefore, I propose, what if we do a color correction model involving algorithms and techniques and so on? So that is my ideation. And then I plan to experiment on my, color correction models and algorithms and so on. And finally, after that, I will propose a publication writing detailing all the solutions. That is distillation. Okay, so that's just the 5-step model. And I'm sure that all of you, whatever topic you have on, if you just follow these 5 models, you are, you will be more clear about your own research topic. Here's another one of me, algorithms for sign language recognition. So, we have people with speech impaired or speech disability, the deaf and the dumb. So they tend to use sign language. What if we can create an app or a software that can detect the hand movement and translate the hand movement into text or speech, so we can better communicate between users of sign language and the rest of society. So again, the same problem. So you have to find examine, understand, ideate, experiment, and distill. Okay. So having said all that, I know that all of you have already registered, and this is your first semester for postgraduate study. But try to think back and try to justify again, why are you doing this postgraduate research? Why are you doing S2 and S3 actually? If it's because you want to follow others, maybe you want to follow your girlfriend or your best friend, or you want to remain in campus because it's cheap to stay in campus and you don't want to find a job outside yet after you graduate, so you will prefer to stay inside campus. That's not the best motivation actually. And if it's because you cannot find other job, you try applying to other job and then you can't, and then suddenly you say, oh, I can't find any other job, so might as well go for postgraduate study. That is also not the best motivation, because you will not be starting on the right foot. What you need to be having in terms of your motivation is that if you are genuinely interested in research, if you would like to do it, if you like to undergo a challenge in your career, and if you want to contribute towards the body of knowledge, that should be your motivation of why you want to do postgraduate research study. And the reason I'm saying that is people tend to think that research and academia tend to be in their own bubbles and their own cocoon that is quite detached from the rest of society, and the research is just benefiting the community of researchers and no one else. That is not true, actually. Have a look at this. On the left, does anyone know what that is? Okay, I'll answer because very hard to get audio response. On the left is the first paper that details out Google.com, the search engine Google. So this paper was written in 1998, and it was sent as a conference paper in 1998. And from this small paper, from this seemingly very innocuous, very average paper, grew Google.com, the giant internet conglomerate, the giant internet company on the right here that we all know, that basically dictates or basically influences a very large part of our lives. So all of that began as research. And that is why I say that research can change the world. Secondly, on the left, if you go to Google Scholar, scholar.google.com, and you type COVID vaccine, you will find that a lot of the research on the COVID vaccines, the reason why the vaccines for COVID has been able to be distributed and accelerated and produced and developed in such a record amount of time is because of the help of the research community. So the development of the COVID vaccine from the start of COVID in around late 2019 or early 2020, people start researching on developing COVID vaccines, and all along the way, they produce their work in reputable journals and publications, and they get feedback. And they help each other. So these researchers, they cite or they make reference to each other in order to produce the best vaccine. And because of this network of research work and publications, we have now arrived in the world today where vaccines are here to save us from COVID-19, inshallah. So a very real example of how publication or research can really directly benefit us in everyday life, inshallah. So hopefully, in whatever research endeavor that we do, this is what we want. We want our research to eventually impact positively on the lives of humans everywhere. So just a small comparison that I like to make when you are an undergraduate life, a postgraduate life, and a working life. So for example, so in terms of work structure, so you know that as an undergraduate, you have a very structured syllabus and classes. Your schedule for every week. So Monday, I have a lecture, and then I have a laboratory, and then I'm meeting my PhD, my FYP supervisor, and so on. Tuesday, blah, 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 and so on, right? But as a postgraduate, it is very independent. It is very unstructured. You want to go to work, you want to go to the lab today, or you want to go to do it tomorrow. You want to work on the paper today, you want to do this tomorrow. That is entirely up to you, as long as you liaise with the supervisor. And I guess it's the same with the working or in the industry, where it's kind of independent, but you do have a boss and a superior on top of you, and maybe the work schedule is not that lenient. So maybe the work is, in terms of work structure, if you're working or in industry, it's a mix between undergrad and postgraduate. What about performance evaluation? So in undergrad, of course, you have exams, you have CGPAs, you have grades, A, B, B minus, and so on. It's all very objective. It's all very calculated. So, it's all numbers and grades. However, for postgraduate, it is very, very subjective. At the end of the day, what matters, or just what divides or what difference from passing or failing is just that viva examination. And in the work or industry, I guess it's also a mix between the two. It can be subjective with annual appraisals from the boss and so on. But of course, your work performance, it has to be maintained and it has to be evaluated continuously as well. In terms of work-life balance, so undergraduate, obviously you have, it's like peaks and valleys, isn't it? Undergraduate. So you begin your first semester and then you have a final exam. And after the final exam, it's free holiday for maybe 4 weeks, 8 weeks, and so on. And then the next semester and so on. However, for postgraduate and for working in the industry, it's actually working all year long, right? So even, for example, here in Malaysia, we're currently having our end of semester holidays. So our new semester doesn't start until next month. But even my postgraduate, my PhD students are still working, and I still, have weekly meetings with them because they have to work all year long. Finances. So undergraduate, of course, it's relatively poor unless if you have a rich scholarship or rich parents. For postgraduate, I suppose it's better because the grants or the scholarships, they might be a bit more. For the working or industry, the salary should be better. So the working or industry should be the best in terms of finance. In terms of peers or friends, of course, when you are an undergrad, you have a whole classroom that you sit together, that you study together, that you see every day in campus, in lectures and so on, maybe 30 of them, 50 of them every day. But as a postgraduate student, your circle of influence, it reduces drastically. So maybe it's just, 5 or 10 of your laboratory mates, or even it may be just you alone in a laboratory. It can be quite lonely. In the work or industry, you have your workmates, which may be a bit not as many as well, maybe just a few workmates as well. So that's just a comparison I like to make between undergraduate, postgraduate, and working or industry. Now, so my next slide, I like to divide the phase to 3 phases: before starting your postgraduate study, during your postgraduate study, and after your postgraduate studies. So what are the best practices of each one that you can do? So first of all, I know that most of you have already started your postgraduate studies, but just in case that you want to find out, or in case you're interested, 3 tips that I can give. First of all is begin with the end in mind. Remember what I said about why do you want to do postgraduate study? Try to ask yourself, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? If this is where you really want to be, this sector is where you really want to be, and a postgraduate study is a step in the direction to achieve that status, then by all means by all means do a postgraduate study. Otherwise, you may want to rethink about your career direction, career trajectory, and decisions, and so on. Secondly, is that if you have not yet found your field of study or your place to study, it's a good time to really think and really choose the suitable place for study. So what I mean is that find a university. It can be either you want to study locally or overseas. Are there scholarships for overseas, or do you want to use your own funding to study overseas? Which country do you want to study in, or is local universities is enough for you? And do you want to choose your university, or do you want to choose your postgraduate study based on your passion, the research topic, or the supervisor that you are interested in? Or do you go more towards the university's reputation? So, this is a good university, so automatically it must be good in research or research topic or whatever. So it's a balance between, do you want to focus more on the research topic or the supervisor, which has a good reputation, or do you want to look for the university, it has a good reputation? and not so much about the topic or the researcher. And the second thing to consider is, what about the funding? What about to sustain your study in university? Most of the options that I find is that students are either on scholarship, so maybe scholarship from the university or scholarship from the government, which covers the tuition fees and covers the living allowances as well, or that the students are on a research or on a postgraduate research based on research grants that are obtained by the lecturer. So the lecturer finds the student to work under him under the research grant, and he or she will be paid as a research graduate research assistant or something like that. Okay, something to consider. And maybe other pre-preparation even before you start obtaining. Even before you start your postgraduate study, consider about your final year project when you are in S1. So when you are doing your undergraduate bachelor's degree, your final year project, maybe you can turn that into a research project. Maybe you can expand it. Maybe you can pursue it further with maybe the same supervisor. Maybe you can use that as a springboard, a jumping board to foreign universities overseas, or lecturers where they can read about your final year project. So your final year project when you're in S1 is very important actually. Maybe other things to consider is the English certificates. This is especially for Western universities. They require the postgraduate students to have a certain degree of English. So, you have to consider taking the TOEFL or IELTS English certificate. And of course, thirdly is about the visa. So this is if you're going overseas. So in my case, I like to just share with you my experience. So in my case, I tend to prioritize university over supervisor. So I was one of those who viewed the university reputation more than the supervisor. I did not even know who my supervisor was going to be until I have registered, and they just assigned me randomly a supervisor. Do I regret it? Well, I don't believe that. I don't believe that that is something that should be regretted, because in Islam we believe that kullu ma qadarallahu khair, everything ordained by Allah is good in the end. But I do feel that looking back, maybe I should have strongly maybe have a stronger consideration for who my supervisor and what my research topic was going to be. So in my case, I prioritize university over supervisor. So I looked at Imperial College in London, in the UK. It's good, so I applied over there. And I had quite a stressful time juggling college application, scholarship, and visa, because these three things, they tend to depend on each other. So it can be quite, mangled together, all these three elements. But alhamdulillah, at the end of the day, I managed to settle all three, and I started my PhD studies in April 2009. So having enrolled and registered at university for your postgraduate study, for your master's and PhD, so what can you expect as a postgraduate student? So the first element, the most important element that you can expect is your relationship with your supervisor. So your relationship with your supervisor is the most important element of study actually, because he or she will be your mentor, your advisor throughout the research journey. And while it is, it's important for me to see that even though the supervisor can give advice, and you are, and as with any advice, you can choose to take it, you can choose to accept it, or you can choose to ignore it, as with any advice. And that is true. However, the important distinction or the important element is that your supervisor is also the gatekeeper to your viva. So as long as your supervisor does not give his signature, give his approval for you to submit your thesis and go for the viva, then you will not graduate with a master or a PhD. So it is very important to have a good relationship with your supervisor. In my career, in my experience, I've seen a lot of, well, not a lot, I've seen several students who does not get on well with their supervisor, and some ended badly, some had to change supervisors, some had to stop studies altogether, some had to repeat their semesters, and so on. So it is very important. And it's important also to note, because each supervisor have their own basically style, and I will talk about styles, supervising styles after this. Basically the tips, what I can advise you as a postgraduate student, with going into postgraduate study with your supervisor, these are the 4 tips that I want to share with you. The first of all is that your supervisor is very busy, and you are not the center of his universe. You are not, the most important thing in his consideration right now. He has a lot of other students. He has classes to teach. He has grants to manage. He has his own, families and life and so on. So it's important that whenever you plan to have work, or to submit a documentation, to submit papers, for him to read or proofread your papers, or for you to send results and so on, whatever you plan with your supervisor, please set deadlines. What I mean is hard deadlines. So let's say after your supervisor meeting, so after meeting with your supervisor, you discuss blah, 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 and we agreed that you will in the next meeting, you will show him this, this result, or this literature review or whatever, so on. So don't leave it hanging. Don't leave it very vague. So next meeting, when? So please set a date already. So let's say in 2 weeks time, in 14 days time, okay, what is the date? What time? Blah, 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 so on. And what are you going to show him? So please write that down. So deadlines are important for you and for your supervisor. So your supervisor also has to take, has to take responsibility to set his own deadlines to read your work. So for example, if you submit your literature review paper, or submit your work for a conference which has a deadline, and you know that after you send to your supervisor for him to read and to proofread and to comment or anything, after that you may want to have to send to a proofreader or whatever to further correct the English and so on. So don't just say that, oh, doctor, please, anytime whenever you're free, please read, comment, and give it back to me. So please set hard deadlines. Doctor, I have to submit before the 10th of September. Please have a read and give back to me before 7th of September, because I have to send to proofreader, which takes 3 days. So the supervisor is now is aware of these deadlines, hopefully, inshallah. Secondly, is to set reminder for meetings. So like I said, the supervisor is a very busy researcher, very busy person. Sometimes he or she tends to forget about meetings. So it is a best practice. I'm sure that it's not your fault, it's their fault for missing out. But once you missed out, it's a waste for everyone. So please remind your supervisor when the next meeting is going to take place. So for example, when the meeting is today, so maybe this morning or maybe 2 or 3 hours before the meeting, you just WhatsApp your supervisor, say, oh, doctor, just a gentle reminder, we have a meeting at 3 o'clock this afternoon, for example. And during the meeting, please take notes. Please take notes of the meeting, because it will act as proof of what you have discussed. So your notebook, your journal, so this is mine. Your journal is very important because it will act as proof. If your supervisor says something, write it down, and then maybe in the next week or 2 weeks after that, if he says something else, then you can, doctor, refer to this, refer to this entry in my notebook. You actually mentioned blah, 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 and so on. Okay, so it's good practice to keep and take notes during the meeting. And finally, please, please, please mind the boundaries. Your supervisor is not your best friend. He or she have also his own life and so on. It's a very delicate balance. Of course, you want to serve your supervisor, and you want to be a good student under him and give a good impression and so on. But it's important to also mind the boundaries. So you have to be friendly, be respectful, but also know that he is your supervisor and you are the postgraduate student. So these are just some of the types of supervisor that you will find. So first of all, in terms of approach, the supervisor might be someone who is businesslike. So someone who is businesslike, everything is formal, focus on the work, and no personal, no birthdays, no invite to the house, no parties or anything. Everything is strictly on work. So that is a supervisor style who is businesslike. On the other hand, you have a supervisor who is more personal. So personal, maybe supervisor wants to know everything about you, your personal circumstances, your family. He or she develops a close relationship and friendship with you. So that's a personal style supervisor. In terms of task delegation, so maybe a supervisor is more of a minimal supervision. So minimal supervision means that the supervisor may be someone who is very, very busy. So a lot of it, he just minimizes his meetings with you or his supervision of you. So more or less supervisor just in name, but most of the time you're working on your own. But on the other hand, you also have supervisors who are very intensive, who wants to know everything and expects you to give every detail in every update in every report. So these are all just supervisory styles. And because of that, and due to these styles, you have 6 types of supervisor: a delegator, a friend, an expert guide, a coach, a quality controller, and an editor. So these are, just some examples of supervisor. So my point here is that it's important for you to determine and to find out and to study what kind of supervisor your supervisor is, and try to alter or tailor your approach and tailor your characteristics and your styles to fit according to his or her style. So in my case, this is my supervisor. So her name is Dr. Tanya Stataki. She is from Greece, but she has been teaching and working at Imperial College London for many years. My supervisor is very motherly and very laid back. She insists that I call her Tanya and not Dr. Stataki. And I remember that every meeting that we have, she just asked me for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. She just asked me about my family and my kids. And she tells about her kids. We just talk and talk and talk. And at the very last 5 minutes, and then she asked about the research. So what I can say is that she provided motivation and encouragement rather than hardcore supervising. Okay, so every supervisor is different, and we're just thankful for any supervisor that we get. All types of supervisors. Inshallah have their own benefits and limitations. The second element that we have to acknowledge and we have to consider in postgraduate is publish and flourish. So publish, i.e. publication. So publication is the bread and butter of research. It is evidence that a research work has been successfully conducted. So if you've done your experiments, if you've done your methodologies and you got your results and so on, so if it just stops at that, then it's all useless. what you need to do is you need to publish that, you need to put it in documentation, and you need to send it up for publication, because it will be scrutinized by experts or peers in the same field to ascertain that what you have done is correct. What you have done is original contribution, it is novel, it is substantial, and so on. So refer back to the philosophy of research. It has to be critical, it has to be verified by others. So that is one way that your work is verified through publication. So in this regard, you must know the difference between a journal, between a conference proceeding, between a book chapter, what is Web of Science, what is IFI, Scopus, what is a peer review, impact factor, quartile, H-index, and so on. So all these terminologies, they play a part in your research life, research experience. Just very shortly, what I can say is that indexing in terms of the tier or the hierarchy of publication, these are just databases that we have in research in the world, research world. So the top is ISI, below it is Scopus, below it is Google Scholar, and below it is peer review. In ISI up here, this is where you will find impact factor and quartile. Quartile as in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and so on. And then H-index is Scopus above. H-index, it just calculates the number of citations per the number of papers, so on. You know, I'm sure that you will find out more about it later. Okay. So in my postgraduate experience, alhamdulillah, I managed to publish, but publish in Scopus conferences, conference proceedings. So my supervisor, Tanya, she was very kind enough to give me some money to travel to conferences and present in conferences. So I attended conference in Japan, in Prague, in Singapore. Unfortunately, I did not manage any journals. So that is one sort of limitation of my PhD. But it did provide me with good training in research and formal academic writing. And it was a great networking experience if you attend conferences and you mingle with other researchers in the same field from around the world. Alhamdulillah. And so just very briefly, some things to remember, some very final things to remember during your PhD study. Doing research is not sorry, I got it confused. Doing research is not a sprint. It's not a sprint, but it is a marathon. And because it's a marathon, it's the most important thing, the most important attribute is self-discipline. What I mean by self-discipline is that pushing yourself to wake up every morning, get out of bed, going to your lab, sitting in front of the computer or in front of the machine from morning till evening, every single day, 5 or 6 times a week. Do that for 3 years or 3.5 years. That is discipline. Even if you skip, if you start on the wrong foot, i.e. even during the first semester, you don't have a good self-discipline, you will not succeed in postgraduate research. So because the nature of postgraduate research is because it's so unstructured, because it only depends on your supervisor and only depend on your viva voce examination and thesis, nobody else is going to supervise you. Nobody else is going to scrutinize you. So if you decide to take a day off, if you want to go to the mall, if you want to, sit at home and watch Netflix all day, nobody is going to care. So it's up to you to have that self-discipline to go to the lab, to go to mengorak langkah to university, to campus, and do your work morning till night, or morning till evening, every day. That is self-discipline. Secondly, is that keep a notebook, and I've mentioned this before. Thirdly, this is very important. Prepare for hazards, because hazards are going to happen maybe in your research time, in your postgraduate time. So please back up your work. I have had a case of a student who almost finished the 3rd year of her PhD, and she was doing work, and all her work was kept in her laptop. and her laptop was when she flew somewhere, and her laptop was missing at the airport. It was stolen or it was lost at the airport. So all her work in her laptop, it was gone. Now, this girl, she had a backup she made the backup of all her work in external hard disk. So not just in a laptop, but in her external hard disk. But her external hard disk was in the laptop bag, which got stolen. So very, very unfortunate. I remember at the end, the university asked her, do you want to continue or do you want to just stop? And unfortunately, she said that I cannot continue with all my work. It's gone. Fortunately, I stopped. Okay. So please back up your work, especially now we have all the clouds and, Google Drive and so on. We can back up our work. Be ethical. So ethics in research is very, very important. As researchers, we have to uphold ourselves to a higher standard. And of course, as Muslims, we have to be amanah, we have to be jujur, ikhlas, avoid falsifying our data. So if your result is not good, it is not good. Don't, massage your data and give good, false data and so on. Do not plagiarize. Plagiarize means copying others' work and putting it into your own work, other people's writings and words and so on, putting your own work. Improper authorship. So let's say somebody who has not involved in any of your research at all, suddenly he wants to be put as a co-author. So that's not proper. And do not repeat your publication. So if you manage to publish in a conference and you take this like 90% of this work and you submit it as a journal paper. So that is considered repeat publication, and that is not ethical. So my final advice is that studying is not everything actually. So your whole time in research is actually for you to make the best of your time, 2-3 years. Yes, discipline is key, but also try to enjoy your time in university as a postgraduate student. So as in my case, so I try to be disciplined, but also, when there's time to enjoy, playing football with my lightmates and so on, we try to enjoy that as well. So the last part, so after postgraduate study, where can you go? What can you do? So where to after research degree? So here's the thing. You basically have two options. The first is you stay in academia, because a postgraduate research degree, a master's or a PhD, it specifically trains you to work in to work as a lecturer or a professor. The things that you do in research, postgraduate research time, you're writing papers, conducting experiments, going to conferences and so on, all of that is the bread and butter of being a lecturer and a professor. And the things that you experience, in publication, learning how to write papers, learning how to conduct experiments and so on, all of that will be good skills and experience for you to pass down to your own research students when you become a lecturer or a professor. So it's a cycle. So you were once a postgraduate researcher, and now you become a lecturer, and then you pass it down to someone else for that. Okay, and you can continue your research field. You can keep expanding it, and it's very important to note that PhD is a very valuable quota for accreditation. So, for example, in Malaysia, the universities, when they solicit lecturers, when they want to when they want to appoint lecturers in their faculties and departments, they look whether that someone has PhD or not. So you have a PhD, it's a very valuable. You can go there, and not just for universities, but for accreditation. So let's say, for example, the Malaysian Qualifications Agency, they say that, okay, this bachelor's degree program, it must have at least 70% lecturers who are teaching in this degree program. 70% must have PhD. So it's a very valuable quota if you have this PhD title. But if you don't work in academia, don't worry, because there are many other opportunities to showcase your skills or to implement your skills in other settings as well. First of all, you can become a researcher in a research institution. So in Malaysia, we have many research institutions that are not associated with academia. They are not universities or whatever, but they are research institutions. So for example, Institute of Genomics, Institute of, I forgot, nuclear engineering and so on. Okay, these are under the Ministry of Science. You can also become a data scientist and maybe work in the finance industry. Why? Because the skills that you learn in postgraduate degree, in master's and PhD, it is basically you're working with data, isn't it? You're working with data, you're working how to analyze data, how to produce results, how to how to manipulate those data and show what the data mean and so on. So all these are valuable skills that may be put to good use as a data scientist or data analyst. And I have a colleague from Imperial College London, did a PhD in signal processing, but now is working in the finance industry. He's an investment banker with making lots of money. The thirdly is similarly with a data scientist is a consultant. You can become a consultant. So I have a friend who's working at McKinsey & Company. McKinsey is a very top-notch consulting company. And again, they value your research skills, the skills that you have acquired during your research time, your postgraduate study. You can go into management, into government or corporate or policy making and become an administrator. So like I said, in my case, I was appointed the director of student development, and my work there had nothing to do with image processing or computer vision. But I suppose that the skills that I honed, the skills that I learned during my research career, it helped me to sort of navigate the student development landscape in Malaysia. So I'm very thankful, alhamdulillah. And all of this is because the time spent in our research, postgraduate research study, we were trained in data handling, in scientific methods, in writing, and so on. And this basically encompasses everything that we can possibly learn in university, in postgraduate degrees, in terms of research, in terms of mobility, in terms of enterprise, supervision, interpersonal skills, cognitive skills, communication skills, digital skills, career development. So imagine with all these at our fingertips and all these, we have mastered the options for us is actually very endless opportunities that are available out there for us. Even if not in our own country, even if not in Malaysia, even if not in Indonesia, the degree, the postgraduate degree is valid all across the world. And there's so many opportunities around the world out there. And what research, postgraduate research is all about is that from a situation whereby new postgraduate students, they come in with a very, big motivation and ambition and passion, but they get bogged down with repetitive tasks and meeting other postgraduate students and being bashed by their supervisor. So their motivation has become down. They become, very inferior, complex, and so on. So the challenge is for them to rise up from this state and emerge with a new identity as competent professionals, able to argue their viewpoint, and confident of their own knowledge, but also aware of the boundaries of their own knowledge. So this new identity permits the postgraduate students to ask for information when they don't know something and express a lack of understanding when necessary, instead of pretending that there is no difficulty for fear of being thought stupid. So a postgraduate student, a research student, is confident enough to ask for questions, confident enough to argue about his or her field, but also knows his own limitations. And to arrive at this point is what being a postgraduate research student is really all about. So finally, ladies and gentlemen, rekan-rekan sekalian, this is my last slide. When you are doing your postgraduate degree, don't forget the bigger picture. What you are doing is expanding that circle of knowledge, contributing to the circle of human knowledge. So keep on pushing, inshallah. So that's all from me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Zaid Umar, for the really complete, comprehensive, and energetic presentation. And before we continue to the questions and answers session, I think Dr. Zaid Umar is a really good communicator. Yeah. So one thing that is missing from the profile that I read, Dr. Zaid Umar, I think you participated in, what is it called, Fame Lab?
Yes.
Fame Lab competition. It's about to communicate science. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. So I'm an advocate for science communication. So I participated in a competition called Fame Lab, which is the world's largest and oldest science communication competition, and I won the Malaysia Fame Lab in 2017.
All right, so there you go, everyone. Okay, so let's move on to the first question. The committee has sent a link. If you have questions, you can type it in the link provided. It will make it easy for me to see questions in one list. However, before that, there is a question, I think, in the Zoom chat box. I'll read that first because it came out quite early from, let me scroll, Priyo Adi Ramadhani. So let me read the question from Priyo Adi Ramadhani. So, dear Dr. Zaid Umar, is there an ideal number of papers I should read to find research gaps? So he's from S2. Yeah.
Okay. I may not be the best, person to answer any of the questions. So maybe Dr. Irfan also can top up and help answer some of these as well. I'll try to answer whatever I can. So in terms of determining the research gap, so obviously the amount of knowledge in the world it's infinite. It's so much knowledge going on. And even I once had a look at the journals in my field of, let's say, in image processing. So even the journals available in the field of image processing, there are hundreds of journals. So from the top journals, the ISI, Q1 or whatever, all the way to the lower journals and so on. So imagine that each journal, it produces 10, 15 papers per year or per quarter. And so each year, the number of research, it grows and grows to an exponential level. So my point is that there's so many research going on in the world. And because of that, it is important for us to, if we want to have a good grasp of the problem statement or the research gap or the field of what we want to do, is for us to read enough papers. So obviously, I'm not talking about thousands and so on, but I'll give you a ballpark figure. So I always tell my students to, if possible, for the first part of your research degree, to write a literature review paper or literature survey paper, because it establishes what you know about the research gap, what other people have been doing and so on. And for each research paper or for each literature review paper, for each of my students, I expect at least 100 references, not papers read, references. Now, 100 paper references, the number of papers read, not all of them will be filtered out and put into references. So maybe as a very conventional calculation, if I cite 100 papers, that means I would have read at least 200 papers. So that is just a ballpark figure. So 200 papers in that particular field for us to really establish a good understanding of the research gap. Dr. Irfan, maybe you want to?
Yeah. That's
and
a
your
very
opinion?
suggestion. I don't have any specific numbers, but I really like the way you suggest your students to start smartly, read the review papers first. So not about the numbers, and that can be a good start, yeah, from reading the review papers. However, before moving on to the next question, I may want to add a problem that I think many of the Indonesian students face. Yeah, because English is not the language that we use in our education system. We still use Bahasa Indonesia as the main language of instruction in university. So I'm guessing most students will struggle to even read one paper. to even read one paper is probably a struggle. So do you have any tips on making it easy to find what information that you can get from a paper?
I don't know the way around, try to master English. English is the lingua franca. Unfortunately, we have to, like it or not, so even when I go to when I meet like researchers from Japan, from Germany, and so on. So even though they have research conducted in their own language, in the Middle East and so on, research conducted in their own language, but in order for research to be spread out and to be read by others, it has to be in a common language, and for better or for worse, that common language is English. So we do have to attain a certain mastery of English. So I don't really have a way. Sorry, I don't have a way around that. But maybe what I try to do is that there is this website that I ask my students to use. It's called connectedpapers.com. So www.connected, CONNECTED, connectedpapers.com. So what this website does is that any paper or any keyword that you type in, it produces the results of a paper, and then it's able to track the salasila, the link of that paper to previous papers. So it's a fantastic way to help us establish the link between this research and the previous research and so on. So hopefully that method it can help a little bit. But with regards to English, even sometimes I have a problem with lecturers and academicians and researchers trying to really write in very, very high level English academic, because it shows that they are intelligent. But however, I much prefer people, they write in just a simple English that everybody can understand. That the world would be in much a better place if that were the case.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that answer. Yeah, I think in engineering generally the papers are written in plain English. not too complicated English. Yeah. All right. Thank you. The next question is from Muhammad Fadil from ITS. So it's quite a long question actually. I'll read it nevertheless. So if you are currently accepted in 2 universities, local and overseas, with a better rank, but still could not go overseas because of the border restrictions under this pandemic, how would you proceed with your degree? If you are moving to overseas, there is a chance that you will be given a new research topic which might not be correlated with your previous research, but you still have interest in it. On the other side, you are already started your degree in this local university. If by chance the border reopens the next semester, would leaving the local university for the overseas university be a wise decision? Or continuing in your local university would be the better choice? So both professors, local and overseas, are very supporting and wants you in their lab. So Muhammad Fadil is considering between two choices, I guess. Yeah.
I see.
All right.
Well, that's a very hard choice to make. And I guess there are a lot of factors there that he has to consider. So you have the pandemic factor, and when the border is going to be open, we don't know yet. The university ranking, the choice of research topic, the supervisor, the professors, the level of support, and so on. What about funding? What about scholarship? What about the living lifestyle? Does he have family and so on? So there's a lot of factors to consider. However, if I were Fadil in this case, I think that he has already started the postgraduate study I suppose in Indonesia. So that is that S2 or S3?
I'm not sure. It's
so if it's a master, then there's always another chance to do PhD in overseas. So you've already started, and I think that it would be quite a shame to just leave that and pursue to start new. However, that's from my point of view. I'm sure that there are a lot of other factors, like I mentioned. So the funding, and even what you want to do after S2 and S3, what your career trajectory, what your career direction is going to be, all that takes into account. Do you want to work in academia in Indonesia, or do you want to go overseas? All of that you have to take into consideration and think carefully.
All right. So there's a nod from Muhammad Fadil. Maybe hopefully you can then have the best option, or the best choice, Muhammad Fadil. Thank you for that question.
Yeah,
and
thank you very much.
The next question is from, yes?
Sorry, I think I just want to mention here, this line here, which some may not agree with me, but I'm just going to say it nonetheless. A PhD, this is what my academic advisor told me many years ago. He said that PhD or a research experience is temporary, because you're conducting research for 3 or 4 years, or 2 to 3 years, but the certificate will last a lifetime. So the certificate of where you graduated from will last you a lifetime. So if you care about, well, not care about, if you give importance or emphasize about where you graduated from this university, or this good university, or this university, that is a consideration, or that is a factor that maybe goes into making your decision as well.
Okay, that's a good suggestion, Dr. Zaid. Now we can move on to the next question. It's from Novalia Andriani, I think S3, yeah? Novalia Andriani. Maybe this time I would like to invite Ibu Novalia. Would you like to ask the question directly? Because I can see you you're in the Zoom meeting.
Yes, thank you. It's my pleasure. So, hello, yes?
Yes,
can
please,
you can. Okay.
Yes, I can hear your question. Please, you can start the question.
Well, actually, this is my difficulties that to find the literature of journals, and then how to search the open access journal, because it is difficult for me sometimes when I see the title. Oh, it is good and related with my research. When I click the link, it is not open access, and it's really make me desperate. And then after that, what is the best keyword to find the topic when we type in the Google or in the ResearchGate journals or whatever, and it is good long words, or how we can find that topic, and then how we can find the research gap. Maybe you can give the simulation to find this is for the example, the topic smart construction or the method for smart construction. This is for the example maybe. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Ibu Novalia. So actually, before Dr. Zaid can answer, as an information, there will be another session that focuses more on literature review and finding and using the tools. However, please, Dr. Zaid, you can also try to share your own experience regarding Bu Novalia's question, please.
Right. So I firmly disagree with open access model or journal subscription model. I think it is despicable and disgusting that we, as the researchers, we author our own papers, but to submit and to get published, we have to pay article processing charge. The reviewers who are reviewing our technical rigor and our papers and so on, they do not get paid. And our universities who want to subscribe to the journal, they have to pay for institutional subscription. And I think it is disgusting and despicable that Elsevier and Springer, they are making millions and hundreds of millions of profit based on this. So I believe that the model is not sustainable at all for academia, and it has to change. I would just like to put that on the record. But unfortunately, that's the world that we are living in now. So the journal model, they have the open access and subscription and so on. So with regards to your question, if a paper is hidden behind a paywall, you have three options basically. So the first is to lobby your institution, maybe lobby ITS to subscribe to the journal, which maybe cost a bit more. I think a few million per year or something, because they can get all the journals, all the papers within that journal. Secondly is maybe you request the help of your friends from other universities or other places who do have access. So this happens a lot in Malaysia among our research community. So this university does not have that subscription. So you just ask friends from other universities, can I get a PDF copy of this paper and so on. So that's what we do. We help each other. And the third is maybe not advisable, but if you go to Sci-Hub, you go to all these websites, well, not illegal, but these left field websites that are fighting the journal subscription models and providing free papers. So that's maybe the options that you can go to. With regards to search keywords and so on, I do apologize. I'm really sorry. I don't really have, I guess, an adequate answer to that. And I suppose, as Dr. Irfan Shah has said, that there will be another session on literature review. Doctor, is that correct? Yes?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. All right. However, Bu Novalia, Dr. Zaid Omar already mentioned some links. What was it? The one that you can find the silsila of paper, connectedpaper.com.
Yes, connectedpapers.com.
Connected paper. Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
I will try to check that out as well. It's my first time to hear that. And if I may add about accessing journals, yeah, it can be a challenge if you are not on campus here. So ITS, in my knowledge, subscribes to several databases like Springer and also IEEE. Science Direct as well. It's a Science Direct, and so as long as it's subscribed by ITS, all that you need to do is, if you are not on campus, you can connect through VPN. Through Novalia.
I ever tried it, Mr. Irfan.
So
and then, but some journal in Science Direct, there is. I have
ITS don't
not get
describe.
access. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not
because,
open. Even though I use VPN or from campus also.
Yeah. So then we can try to find from our friends or that Dr. Zaid and myself, we sometimes use Sci-Hub. All right, now next, the next question is from Febrian Aditama Santosa. Her question is regarding meeting the supervisor, because you put this nice comic about meeting supervisor. So do you have any tips to reduce feeling nervous when meeting the supervisor? Sometimes Febrian feels very nervous because he's afraid of the bad possibilities that may happen when he meets the supervisor.
Well, sometimes it's not your fault that you're nervous. Sometimes it's the supervisor who is very, intimidating and very scary. So you are right to be nervous. But I guess looking to if I'm in the position of my students, what I would like my students to be is for them to be fully prepared. So when we do our weekly meetings, me and my students, and I suppose you with your supervisor, don't just say, our next meeting at 10 a.m. On Friday, something like that. Please be specific when you are doing your meeting. What are you going to discuss about? What are the things that you expect to present? What are the limitations? So that both sides can prepare. So my point is, the student has to be fully prepared before coming to the meeting, so that you don't become nervous, so that both sides have a realistic expectation of what to expect from this meeting. And hopefully the supervisor will not be so angry and intimidating. But on the other hand, you also have many types of supervisor. The professor type, the very angry type, the very garang one. So as a student, I guess the best you can do is prepare, and maybe if you can, ambil hati sedikit, compliment the supervisor and so on. Maybe they feel a bit better, but not too much, because it will look like they are in Malay, bodek, which the supervisor doesn't like anyway. But yeah, my answer would be a good preparation will help to alleviate any nerves and expectation. So preparation and expectation.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So
sir.
there you go.
Thank you.
Gabriel, is that enough?
Yes.
Would you like
yes,
to?
enough.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. And the next question is from Muhammad Bagus Ansori. He's asking tips or advices for first-year doctoral students, especially related in literature review activities. So this may have been discussed several times, but if you would like to give more comments, Dr. Zaid Omar, you can try to give a comment on tips or advices for first-year doctoral students, especially related in literature review activities.
Again, I think we will have another another presentation specifically on literature review. So I suppose that the emphasis, it can be emphasized there. Maybe what I would like to say is that obviously the first 12 or 18 months of your doctorate, of your PhD study, will be specifically dedicated to literature review. It is very important for PhD study to first obtain the motivation and the rationale of why you want to do this. So it's all good getting all the techniques right, and the algorithm is fantastic, the results are wonderful and so on, but you have to link it with the so what. So with my palm oil example, where is it? Okay, so with my palm oil example, so if I manage to detect the rightness of palm oil, what does it do? How does it help the industry? How does it help the country? So that part is very important, to get the rationale, the motivation, the significance of research and the contribution towards the nation and to the industry. That part is very important. and also the literature review in terms of, so what has been done, what has been the works that have been done before, because obviously I'm not the first person to work on palm oil ripeness detection, but specifically what are the others that have been doing and what are the limitations. So focus on these two things for the first 12 and 18 months of your PhD. And these two, they will form your chapter 1 and chapter 2 of your thesis. And moving on into chapter 3 and 4 and 5, those will be the later parts or the middle parts of your PhD actually. So what I always emphasize to my PhD students, my postgraduate students, is the so what, the motivation, the rationale, the significance of why we want to do this research, and what are the previous related works or the previous literature, and what's lacking in them. So those two that I would like to focus on or emphasize on.
Thank you, Dr. Zaid Umar. There are 2 questions left actually in the link, and the next question is from Suardiantara Silalahi. Allow me to read it, but however, there's some part of it which I may not understand. So, as a sandwich generation, how to ensure ourselves that taking master's degree is the best choice, while we have a family which need economical support from us and expect us to work instead of taking master's degree. All right, so there is probably some doubt on between working or doing postgrad.
Yeah, so I suppose if you compare this one, so the money, the finance, if you're working, of course, is better than being in postgrad and so on. But I like to think that postgraduate degree, your master's and your PhD, it goes towards your investment in yourself. So education and higher education, postgraduate education, is an investment in yourself. Once you get your master, once you get your PhD, the salary that you're able to command, that you're able to dictate, will be far higher than if you just keep working in industry. I suppose that's for a lot of cases. So for example, me compared to my peers from university, so some of us, they go into working in industry and so on. Me and a few others, we go into doing postgraduate degree. And then if you're comparing finances, or if you're comparing economic situations of families, I can see in general that being a lecturer, having a postgraduate degree is very comfortable. So what I mean is that we bertahan, we be patient for a few years and have our self-discipline to obtain that master and that PhD, and hopefully after that complete, the end of that, you come out with a higher self-worth and higher self-value, and you are able to dictate far more. And especially if you're able to, go overseas. I have a few friends who, even if they master and PhD in Malaysia, but they're able to work in Finland, they work to Sweden, they were working in Japan, UK, and so on. And everywhere they go, it's very valuable, the PhD. That's why it's investment actually. So as with any other investment, of course, you're sacrificing a lot at the beginning to reap the benefit and the gain at the end, inshallah.
Yes. Mas Suardiantara, is that enough? Would you like to add some more question or about your question?
Can I add some follow-up question?
You can.
How if you are given a condition where your parents is in a not good condition or in terms of healthiness, and it means that you are probably have a chance to lose them in the journey of your master or postgraduate study.
And what's the other option?
Actually, I have taken the option to get this postgraduate study and have I have sent my my resignation letter, and I will be fully student at October. Start from October, I'll be full-time student.
Okay, so there's one more problem. Is there? Yeah, the choices between working and full-time master's degree, and then there's also family that needs to be health problems of your parents. Is that correct, Mas Suardiantara?
Yes, sir.
I think the question from Dr. Zaid Umar is asking you about the other options. So you said want to consider not doing the postgrad degree, or because you need to take care of your parents, or was it? Can you clarify the options, all the options?
Yes, that is correct. The option is either you take the opportunity to continue your study. Yes, it's grant a I grant a scholarship to do my postgrad, but I not as much as the salary from my previous working activity. So probably I will not have the same support as I did before because of study the scholarship given me support, financial support, but not as much as my previous salary. So yeah, that's the problem, and that's still in my head. Yeah,
the amount of that salary, is that very critical for the well-being of your parents?
If I could say yes.
Okay, right. Well, this is getting quite personal. This is just to remind everyone, this is live streamed on YouTube. So if you are sure you want to talk about this, that's fine. Did you want the answer, or do you want it in private?
If Dr. Zaid do not, is it okay for Mr. Zaid to give personal answer? I would appreciate it.
That's fine. Oh, please. just
I don't know what to say to that. I fully sympathize with your situation. It's a very difficult, a life-changing decision, and I can't imagine being in your place. So having to choose between the welfare of your parents and helping them, and investing in doing research. So I could not give a definite answer either way, to do this or to do that, because obviously there will be pros and cons. There will be many other factors, families and the locations and so on. But I do wish you all the very best in whatever decision that you make, and hope that the University ITS may continue to support you and your friends may continue to support you either way, inshallah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so yeah, so thank you for sharing with us, Mas Suardiantara, and we wish you the best. And let's move on to the last question for this evening. Muhammad Zaki. It's actually the question is similar to the previous one. So when we are at masters, how many journals or papers that we have to read per month, so we can really prepare our papers or journal or research per month this
time? I'll share with you my example. Because I did my master's as a coursework master at the University of Sheffield. So going into my PhD, I had zero or almost very little or very zero experience in reading research papers. And so it took me quite a while to get myself acclimatized and familiarize myself with reading research papers. So I remember during the early days of my PhD, one paper, I only managed to understand the abstract and then the conclusion. And in the middle, I don't understand at all. So, but at the very least, the abstract and conclusion, they are good indicators of what that people want to do. So without, the middle, all the mathematics, all the technical terms and so on, if you manage to just read the abstract and the conclusion, and you do that for a lot of papers. So like I said, at least 100 references for a literature review paper that you're writing. That means you're reading at least 200 papers. So maybe in your first year, if you can set a target to read 200 papers during the first 12 months, and maybe you can divide that for each month or each week, whatever. But again, this is just a ballpark figure. I guess you can discuss with your supervisor. He or she will know better than me, obviously, about your pace or about your field of research and so on. But that would be my general advice.
All right, thank you very much for that answer, Dr. Zaid Umar. That's actually our last question for tonight. And from the time, I think it's also time for us to end this Q&A session. Before we end, let's give Dr. Zaid Umar a very big applause. Thank you very much, Dr. Zaid Umar. Yes, and one sentence. Would you like to give maybe a closing remark, or maybe some one sentence tip for our students tonight?
I would just like to say congratulations, everyone, on embarking into this wonderful journey into the research world. It is the beginning of a most fantastic period of your life, the most difficult, the most critical. There will be a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of tears, but inshallah, it will all be worth it in the end, because you will come out on the other side as better, more educated, more knowledgeable, more disciplined, and a better version of yourselves than before. And hopefully that will inspire you to contribute more towards the nation and to the body of knowledge, inshallah. All the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, that is all from myself as moderator. I would like to apologize for the shortcomings of the way I presented, and now I'll give the chance back to the MC.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zaid Omar, for the very inspiring and comprehensive lecture today. Thank you, Dr. Ivan, for conducting this amazing session. As a token of appreciation, we would like to present a certificate for Dr. Zaid Omar as our gratitude for today's session. Thank you very much again. So this is the certificate.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And then next, the certificate will be presented for Dr. Ilvan for being our great moderator today.
Okay.
Terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we end this session, we would like to invite all participants to open their camera and to have a group photo. It's time for you to keep smiling, guys. We have received a very inspiring lecture today and also very comprehensive. Okay. I think we need to end the, yes. All right. Okay. I will make countdown. So it will be around 7. So please smile all the time because this is taking some time. Okay. Okay. 3, 2, 1, say cheese. Another one, number 2. 3, 2, 1, cheese. Okay. Number 3. 3, 2, 1, smile. Number 4. 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay. Number 5. Bear with me, guys. 3, 2, 1, smile. Number 6. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Smile. Another one. Last one. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Smile. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending this session. Now we have finished the group photo. I would like to remind you all to provide feedback in the provided chat below, and then you can. I would like to remind you that the participant will get stamp for it is the participant who comes on time during this event until the end, and also fill the feedback form. Finally, we have reached the end of today's researcher and research student enrichment program. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience during the session from me as the master of ceremony and all the committee. I would like to express our sincere gratitude for all attendees, all speaker, moderator, and also Bapak Ardianto today. So I hope we can see you guys again for the next session. You can go to ITS Global Engagement website for the next session about the detail on it. Okay. Good evening. Stay healthy and safe. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Very much, Dr. Said Umar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Very well presented.
Thank you so much.
Very enlightened.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to all participants today. And Miss Dewi Sartika, I thought you have a virtual background, but that's real background, yeah? The Dr. Angga, Plaza Dr. Angga.
Yes, basically,
it's a real
I moved,
background, not virtual.
Basically, I moved to the first floor, actually.
Yeah, Plaza Dr. Angga. Very nice. All right.
Okay, minta diri dulu. Thank you all. Assalamualaikum.
Terima kasih.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih.
Waalaikumsalam.